Treatment plants all over the Midwest.
I'd say.
We were really lucky.
Are we ready?
Yeah. That's unlucky, but we were really lucky. Yeah, it was kind of.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, August 16th, 2021, 7 p.m. Heidrich.
Here.
Holtmeyer.
Here.
Patke.
Here.
Pettit.
Here.
Reed. Scornia.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Here.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meetings dated August 2nd, 2021? Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Patke.
Aye.
Pettit.
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye.
Having read the minutes, are there any questions or comments?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Heidrich, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated August 2nd, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Approval and adjustment of agenda.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So move.
Make a motion.
Okay, we'll give you the second. So, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the agenda. Thank you.
Priority items, Washington Fire Department officers.
In your packet tonight is a letter from Tim talking about the new officers. You can tell us about that a little bit?
Yes, good evening, council. Good evening, Mayor. The fire company has a new process for installing members as far as officers go. We rewrote our bylaws and put that into place about a year ago, September of last year. And part of that is we've created a board of directors, and the chief and the board are the elected officers of the fire company now. In the past, we would elect all of our officers individually. Now it is chief appointments and approval by the board of directors for the chief officers and ratification by the company as a whole. This particular year, and the organizational structure was redone as well, with an assistant chief, second in command, and then two deputy chiefs, one of support and one of administration, basically the deputy of things and a deputy of people. And so we're splitting responsibilities up basically to make a more streamlined organization. And so with that, the chief officers were put forth was Mark Scornia as the assistant chief, second in command. Mike Holtmeyer would be the deputy chief of support, and Buzz Camp support of deputy chief administration. And so those were ratified by the fire company, and by ordinance we're bringing that to the council this evening.
Okay.
Is that 87 members, active members, or just 87 members?
That's active members presently. And I think there's three applications right now? Or five?
Yeah, 3 of them were just run through and 2 more in the works.
Yeah, so we'll be over 90 here shortly. We did open up our membership to out-of-district members. We do have out-of-district members now. Our first one is out in the Campbellton area. And frankly, that's where we're seeing a lot of interest, is out in that Campbellton area, right outside the district border out there. But we are seeing some former members that moved just outside of our area, expressing interest in coming back as being members of the fire company. We also changed it up a little bit. We're letting administrative people come in, so if there's people with a specific talent that want to be a member of the fire company but don't want to fight fires, we're bringing those folks in as well as an administrative position to help support the organization.
That's a good idea.
Great idea.
Yeah,
This was about 3 years in the works total to rewrite the bylaws and implement it.
very good. Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Patke, seconded by Pettit, to approve the slate of officers for the Washington Fire Company. Fire Chief Tim Frankenberg, Assistant Chief Mark Scornia, Deputy Chief of Support Mike Holtmeyer, and Deputy Chief of Administration Buzz Eckelkamp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. There is an ordinance that we have to clean up. We'll come back and resubmit that for cleanup in the city code. So we'll bring that back as an ordinance to
Okay,
fix that.
great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, Tim.
Citizens' comments?
Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay.
Unfinished business. An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an encroachment license by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Good evening, council. In your packet, there's a cover letter that just explains what these two items are, item 5A and 5B. When the bank submitted their application or plans for construction there at Rabbit Trail Drive, it was identified that the existing sign, I think it exists today, was actually located in a public utility easement with a water line underneath of it. So in order for them to move forward, they wanted to sign at that location. Encroachment agreement is a mechanism that we can do. Basically, it says that if we had to get to our water line, dig it up for some reason, we're not responsible for replacing the sign. So it's just an agreement to do so. In addition to that, we also found that there was a water line of ours on their property outside the utility easement. So they agreed as a reciprocal agreement, basically, to allow us to keep it in that place and allow it on their property, and we don't repair anything that they do if we have to go dig it up. So it was kind of a cleanup item when the bank was surveyed.
Was there a discussion about putting that water line in an easement then, John, with
It
them?
was, but I discussed that with Bob Dobsch at the time, and he didn't see it to be necessary. He thought this encroachment agreement was fine. It would have cost the city money to do so, so it's just a document that, there's no need to do it at this time. But we did throw that out there at them.
Are there any questions or comments?
John, would that encroachment agreement go on if, say, there was a different owner sometime down the road?
Yeah, it's a recorded document.
Okay.
Anyone else?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an encroachment license by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of encroachment license by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County.
Hydrich.
Introduced by Councilman Heidrich.
This is the same, essentially, document. We're the licensor in one, and we're the licensee in a different one, so it's the
Okay.
reciprocated agreement.
All right. Any questions?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of encroachment license by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks.
John, do you have anything?
Yeah,
Report of department heads?
Yeah, just give you an update on High Street. As you can see, Joker's Construction's moving towards Highway 100, from the north, actually. They'll be working on the driveways and those things in the upcoming weeks. We're working on scheduling out the property owners. Then milling operations will occur, obviously, after all the concrete work is done. They do have some work north of 9th Street, some curb and gutter work that we're replacing a box culvert. There's like little box culverts at the intersections. Those are going to get taken out and put swales back in. And then there'll be some ADA ramps up at 5th Street. So we're just trying to get this first phase done while we're still working with Bourgeon school coordination, those type of things.
So how does that work with the mailboxes? Is everybody in charge of their own mailbox?
We are talking to every property owner and basically replace the mailbox they have. We can put them a new one. The biggest thing is just make sure we have ADA access, 48-inch clearance, those things. Some are sideways if they wanted them. We really didn't care.
Okay. All right.
Whatever made the resident happy, it's their mailbox, so,
They purchased a mailbox if they want a different one?
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Any other questions?
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance accepting the bid from Hotsy Unlimited, Inc., O'Fallon, Missouri, to approve the purchase of a model N43N pressure water replace and install by the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. Tony?
Good evening, Council. This is basically a replacement for our pressure washer that we have in our wash bay. We budgeted $8,000. We went with the $7,000, $15, almost identical piece of machine. We did have an option for more of a car wash style one, which you can see on the quotes, but probably a little much for what we need. So this is just a even replacement.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Hotsy Unlimited, Inc., O'Fallon, Missouri, to approve the purchase of a Model N43N pressure water replace install by the City of Washington, Missouri. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels? Heitrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
And an ordinance amending the 2021 budget of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Heitrich.
Introduced by Councilman Heydrich. Tim?
Me again. The CARES funds from the county provided the fire department $16,635. Part of that money was looked at to add a repeater to our NOSWIN system. Presently, we do not have any repeater capabilities. What that piece of hardware does is in the more remote areas or in areas of poor service where a portable radio may not necessarily have service, and the mobile radio does, that repeater would act as a mini network basically to connect those portables to that repeater system and be able to communicate back. The MOSWIN network, I believe, is 95% mobile coverage is what they promise. So portable coverage, and that's what we use primarily is portable radios. So that portable coverage is not very good in some spots, whereas the mobiles may work. So what we're requesting to do is move the full $16,000 over to the operating budget. We have a bid from Radiocom for $8,125 for a radio repeater. That would replace an existing VHF repeater we have in a piece of equipment now. We got a single bid from Radiocom. The nature of the MOSWIN system is you're pretty limited on vendors, and Radiocom is a Harris vendor. The only other Harris vendor we know of is Command One. We were speaking to them in the past about it, and their equipment that they were providing and suggesting was significantly higher in price. And so they were looking at straight Harris equipment, whereas Radiocom has found a very good provider of equipment at a much lesser cost. The other portion of the funds we want to move over to our building maintenance fund to fix our generator at Station 3, Fire Station 3 at West 5th Street. The transfer switch has failed. It's a 20-some-year-old switch put in 1998. Parts are no longer available for that transfer switch. So we're looking to not only replace it, but to upgrade it. That building right now, none of the administrative side HVAC is covered by the generator. So when we switch over now, Station 3 or Station 4 into Gen Power, the air conditioner and the heaters on the administrative side don't work. And so what we're looking for is to upsize the transfer switch on the generator to allow it, when we do a generator upgrade, to allow full power into the whole building. And that's what we've been doing with buildings. The training center's done that way. And as we're replacing generators in our system, we've been doing that. So it would save money in the future when we replace that generator. The other portion of it is we had a garage door opener failure at Station 3. So we're shuffling trucks around. The door will go up, but it will not come back down. And so we're looking to move that money into the building maintenance fund to help offset some cost associated with that.
Tim, does the repeater increase the frequencies for your radios, or how far do they reach out?
So as long as there's mobile coverage, and there's about, like I said, there's about 95% mobile coverage, it will reach a mobile radio. What the problem is you get into certain areas, and it's actually in the city as well. There's areas that, you'd think about it in a rural area, but there's actually a few dead spots in the city as well, in addition to building penetration. So that repeater system basically allows the portables to talk back to that repeater, and then it transmits it back out on a mobile radio. So it basically takes the lower power portable radio and puts it on a higher power mobile radio system is what it's doing. Because it's all networked together. It works similar to the old Nextels. So it's like having a base station rather than having just a Nextel phone with you.
Thank you.
Any other
I was
questions?
going to ask how that worked out, that money worked out to the dollar, but you're saying for the garage door, you don't know yet what to repair?
No, the garage door number is going to be less than that, but our building maintenance fund, we've been seeing some infrastructure issues with our buildings. They're getting older. They're in the 20 to 30 year range. So we're starting to see some things fail, water heaters, generator switch gear, and we've also been doing upgrades, AC units and other things as they're failing. Our AC units at headquarters, for example, are 30 years. And so as those things are failing, we've been just taking that out of the building maintenance fund. So that fund's been hit pretty hard this year. That's basically to move all the money over so we're not doing another budget amendment in the future.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
An ordinance amending the 2021 budget of the City of Washington, Missouri. Solentrep?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Worldwide Industries Corporation for the interior and exterior recoating of Clay Street and Enduro water storage tanks and amend the 2020-2021 budget.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Good evening, Council. What you have before you is a contract to work with Worldwide Industries Corporation to repaint both the Clay Street Water Tower and the Enduro Water Tower. Both of them are at the age of where they need to be repainted. We went into a decision working with Cochran Engineering to repaint both of them at the same time. We felt we'd get a better deal at that, which we did get a really good deal. So we're in the process of moving forward. So the Clay Street Tower needs to be repainted, and the Clay Street Tower doesn't have a mixing system in it. So what a mixing system does is it allows the water to be mixed as it's filling the tank. Right now it comes in the bottom of the tank, and it goes out the bottom of the tank. So we're adding a mixing system to that, which would circulate the water. We added one to Crestview when we redid that one. That helps water quality, and now that we have to disinfect, it keeps the residual in the tank mixed together rather than it getting separated and then creating bad water quality. So that's that one's for. And the Enduro tank has not been repainted since it was built in 2002, so it's ready for it. That does have a leaking overflow tank or overflow pipe on it, which we're going to repair while we're doing that. So that's what I got before you.
Have you used Worldwide before?
No, we haven't, but Cochran, they did a good job of reviewing some of their other clients and talking with them, and they're very comfortable in the fact that they'll do a good job. We also have some extra money in the funds to add extra
Circulators.
the testing of it to make sure they're doing a good job. Yeah, inspections. So I think they'll do all right. They're highly qualified on the eastern side of the country, so I think they'll do a good job for us here.
Kevin, or maybe this will be a question for Darren. How much do we pay Cochran to do this, more or less construction management, instead of us just going out for bids on this internally?
I don't remember what the,
Contract to them?
Yeah.
We went into a contract with them.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the dollar amount, but when you get into a project of this size, you almost need an outside entity looking over everything, because if we miss something and we don't get it right, then the DNR kind of steps down on us, and that's their responsibility, is to make sure that all of that is handled correctly. So that's kind of why we went out on that. So.
They also bring in like a third-party tester as well that'll test the mill thickness of the paint and those type of things as the project progresses, things that we don't have. And we've been through this before, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, of looking into doing some, specifically on streets and concrete testing internally. But it's always a good idea to get a third party to do the testing and just the oversight, because it provides a layer of inspection quality to a project. So we sit down and say, these are things we can do, these are things we can't do, things we shouldn't do, and this is one of them. I mean, measuring mill thicknesses of paint and the quality of that's just not something I think that we're qualified to do.
And I do
That
have
does
a
not mean-
representative from Cochran here if anybody has any questions for him. Brian from Cochran is here if you have any questions for him. But
Sorry, Kevin. That does not mean, though, that Kevin's not involved in that, to try to keep that cost as low as possibly we can. So just
Yeah.
like any other inspection project that we do.
I'll be visiting the sites every day, so but it does good. We use the same inspector when we repainted Clay Street back in 2012, and they do a really good job, and a lot of it is documentation. that has to go to the DNR, and that's what they do as the documentation, which takes all that load off of us as a city. It puts it on them.
Did we use Cochran on Madison?
No, we use Donahue Engineering.
Donahue Engineering.
Yes.
Kevin, on this, I was looking at it, and it kind of jumps around on me. The original engineer's bid was 800-some thousand.
Correct.
And it's coming in just under 600,000, but we only budgeted 400-some thousand. I'm just wondering how that got.
Well, what I did was I budgeted the towers with numbers that were previous to all of the situations that are going on. So when we got the bids in, they were higher than what I'd originally budgeted for this year. That's why we had to adjust the numbers and everything on it. So it was just a little different way that the numbers came in and the bids came in at that time when I did estimates for the budget for the beginning of the year of 2021, for the 20 budget, the numbers came in different. So that's why we got the adjustments we had to
The
do.
budget number was not the same as the engineer's estimate,
Yes.
obviously. The engineer's estimate was from Cochran based upon going out for bid for these,
Yes.
so.
I was just saying, it just
Yeah.
seems to be a wide range there.
Yeah.
You could see the volatility in the market, right?
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
If you look at the numbers of the bids, yeah.
And you're going to go into next year's in order to try to cover that difference?
Yes, we'll be working on the Clay Street tank, starting as soon as it's approved, we'll bring them in and start, and we'll get that one done. And then we'll have to stop, and then in April, we'll paint the Enduro because of the weather. There's a certain window that they can work in, and we can't do it during the summer because we can't take a tower offline, so that's why we kind of balance it through the fall and the spring season, so that's why.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Worldwide Industries Corporation for the interior and exterior recoating of Clay Street and Enduro water storage tanks and amend the 2020-2021 budget. Sullentrup? Pettit?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from Institute Forms Technologies USA LLC for the Storm Sewer CIPP project 2021-2022 and to amend the 2021 budget.
Heidrich.
Introduced by Councilman Heidrich.
Okay. Last year, we started to budget some money out of the use tax, which is formerly known as the Stormwater Fund, to line sanitary sewers in town. The reason why we can utilize those funds for that is because it's stormwater infiltrating into the sanitary sewer system. So basically, it just allowed for a separate pot of money to look into aggressively go after infiltration and inflow in our sanitary sewer system. I'm sure each and every one of you have heard of a story or something happened during a rain event, with a backup on a sewer system. So we've recognized that over the past couple of years. And we're aggressively going after those. 2019, we did do some lining. What this project does, it actually increases that to about 14,000 linear feet of sanitary sewer system or sanitary sewer pipe. It's 6-inch. It's the majority of the downtown area. So if you can envision just west of here and then north of essentially 5th Street is where we're focused on. Somewhere, again, around the International Shoe Factory. That's the majority of our 6-inch clay, which previously you could not line. The technology wasn't there to do so. So there's a robot that goes in there and actually cuts out the sewer laterals. So that's kind of came a long way in the last 5 years, basically. So what this would do is it would continue that, aggressively going after I&I. In addition, there's a storm sewer behind Ron Avenue that's caused us problems for years. It's behind 2 homes. I think it's Ridgeview maybe and Ron Avenue. We've been chasing sinkholes back there for forever. I mean, ever since I've been here. And what I found out was there's a lot of breaks on some of the bells and things. If we were to go in there and open cut that, every one of those mature trees and things would die. You can't drop a backhoe and dig out that pipe without killing trees. So we thought this would be a good mechanism as well to line at least half of that pipe. Then in the next coming budget cycles, we will then line the remainder part of that pipe. So hopefully we're finally attacking that issue. This pulls the 2022 budget up. So that's why it's a budget amendment. I want to get moving on this as fast as we can. It also then saves us an extra mobilization cost that we would have. I don't want to get them in town this year, at the end of this year, have them leave, and then come back at the end of next year. That makes no sense. So I'm just pulling that money up and moving forward and trying to get as much of this line as we possibly can.
John, when
Yes,
we
sir.
do the main lines with the in situ form, and you say we cut into laterals, do we go into the lateral towards the homes at all?
No. The sanitary sewer laterals are owned by the property owners, so we do not do so. Now, if there is an abandoned lateral that we can determine to be abandoned, what we do is we just don't cut it out. So we'll leave it 100% lined. If you kind of envision, a sewer line's got a bunch of holes in it. So if there's abandoned laterals that we know of on that line, we won't cut it out, which kind of reforms that pipe and gets rid of that, Swiss cheese type effect, basically. So
If we have someone who has a clay lateral that wants to pay to get the in situ form to their house, is that something we can look into?
no, that's a private matter that the technology is there for lining of sewer laterals. There's local companies actually right here in town that does that type of work. Typically, what you see is open cut, like the utility cuts around town. But no, we don't typically get involved, and I don't think that that in situ form has the same technology, the same equipment to go to a lateral that small. But there are companies locally that do
If
that.
there was a company to come and do it, would they go through our main to do it?
No. What they'll do is they'll put a clean out, if there's not a clean out. They'll put a clean out most likely 5-10 feet away from the house. They'll measure how long that line has to be, and they'll push it towards the main. And that's how they do it. So they don't get in and cut it out at the main. It's just a length thing.
But it's available for,
It is available, yep. It's, if you have anybody, then come talk to me about it. I mean, we see that form of replacement of sewer laterals, 4 or 5 times a year.
Would you guess how many companies we have in town that provide that?
There are
I know of one, but I didn't.
two.
Two?
Two that locally work in
And this would be a plumbing company,
plumbing companies, correct.
plumbing business?
We actually, 2 years ago, if you demo a house and you want to reuse the sewer lateral, you have 2 options. You can either rip it out and replace it, or we require you to line it. So that's part of your demolition process now. So if you demo a house and you want to reuse it, you have to replace or rehab the pipe. And the reason for that is we saw a lot of failures. A lot of these backups are happening because, we'll do our thing on our sewer main. We won't have any joints or anything, but we'll see the roots and things get in actually through the lateral and through the connection and block the line. And that connection is owned by the property owner.
you don't have an idea of what the cost difference would be
Yeah, it's about probably about 110 to 125 hours of linear foot.
for the in situ form versus digging it up?
Digging it up, that's a good question. Probably maybe somewhere around, that's a tough one. There's a lot of variables there. You got curb and gutter,
Yeah.
sidewalk, you got
Backyard, front yard, depends on where.
front yard, backyard, curb and gutter, sidewalk.
Length.
Asphalt.
Yeah.
10 foot deep, 8 foot deep.
Right.
2 foot deep. So, but it's, the lining is somewhere like 110 to 125 is what.
Okay.
Now, we've used them, the city has actually used them before, the local lining companies. If we found a lateral that was abandoned and we knew it was abandoned, they can actually do what's called point repairs as well. So they actually can repair just a 3-foot section rather than the whole pipe. So we've used them on that type of stuff, where they'll push a liner in to find that point, and then it'll cure out of that location to seal that lateral off.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the proposal from In Situ Form Technologies USA LLC for the Storm Sewer CIPP Project 2021-2022 and to amend the 2021 budget. Salentrop?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels? Heidrich?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you all.
An ordinance amending Section 610.140 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri relating to the no-visit list.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
This is the portion of the code that talks about our no-visit list. I think we brought this to your attention. Obviously, our residents can come to the city and request to be placed on the no-visit list. Your previous ordinance had the requirement that they had to resubmit every 2 years in order to stay on that list, and this just simply removes that requirement. Once you're on there until you move or you request otherwise.
So you have to re-list.
Under the previous, the way it is, before this ordinance, you would have to, every 2 years, you would have to go ahead and sign up again.
But now,
You're on it.
But if you move,
But if you move, obviously, then you gotta, you wanna get back on the note, that's right. And it's, the form's available online, correct?
any questions? Okay.
An ordinance amending section 610.140 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri relating to the no-visit list. Sullentrup, Pettit,
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Scornia. Yes. Wessels. Heidrich.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a release and settlement agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Bridget L. Mellon.
Patke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke.
So, I think you have my cover letter within your packet. This basically allows us to go ahead and keep the sewer easement in place through Lot 16 of Meadow Lake subdivision. This was necessary to extend the sanitary sewer to the Meadow Lake subdivision as part of that voluntary annexation agreement.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a release and settlement agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Bridget L. Mellon. Sullentrup, Petke,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Scornia. Yes. Wessels. Heidrich.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank
Yes,
you.
I did mess up.
Nice
Making
cover
sure
up.
we're listening, aren't you? Uh-huh.
Yes.
You passed.
An ordinance approving amendment number 24 to the development plan for acquisition of an industrial tract commonly known as the Elmer C. Hydeman Industrial Park, providing for the sale of Lot 15 to JB Capital Investments, LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Good evening, Council. So the next two ordinances on your agenda are for amendments to the development plan in Hydeman Industrial Park. As it's been a little while, but I wasn't sure if you're all aware, whenever we sell a lot in Hydeman Industrial Park, or rather when the 353 Redevelopment Corporation sells a lot, they have to get an amendment done to the plan because it is part of the state 353 state statute, which is a planned development out there, and any sale has to be approved as an amendment. So the first one is a sale of Amendment 24. It is sale of Lot 15. That's the smaller lot there on Michael's Drive to the left, just below Reekers. That is an actual sale where we're expecting closing in the next 30 days. And the second ordinance, Amendment number 25, is actually an option on Lot 12. That's the other highlighted piece, that about 9.5 acres graded at the corner of Enduro and Vosbrink. That one is an option. Typically, we wouldn't do the amendment until closing. This is a 2-year option. I don't necessarily anticipate going the full 2 years, but the company wanted to buy some time to secure the land for them. And since this is tied to an escrow that has to be placed, 353 will not receive their escrow until all contingencies are met, and one of the contingencies in the contract is that this amendment is done. So we're just kind of getting it done ahead of time. So both of these are on there tonight. 353 did pass a resolution for both to accept both sales, or one sale, one option. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Sal, is the pretty large difference in price per acre? Is it due to the fact that the one is graded and ready, or?
Yes, absolutely. So Lot 12 is pre-graded. We call it shovel-ready. It is ready. It's been tested. It's got a Phase 1 done on it. They could get a building permit tomorrow with little to no homework or due diligence on the lot. Lot 15 has also had a Phase 1 done, but if you've driven up there, it is a big hole. So it's not anywhere near pad ready. I anticipate the user of that will have to bring in quite a bit of fill before they can build on it or sell it.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sal.
An ordinance approving amendment number 24 to the development plan for acquisition of an industrial tract commonly known as the Elmer C. Hyman Industrial Park, providing for the sale of Lot 15 to JB Capital Investments LLC. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance approving amendment number 25 to the development plan for acquisition of an industrial tract commonly known as the Elmer C. Hyman Industrial Park, providing for the granting an option for eventual sale of Lot 12 to LMI Aerospace, Inc.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows up the Lot 12 that Sal was just discussing with us. Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance approving amendment number 25 to the development plan for acquisition of an industrial tract commonly known as the Elmer C. Hyman Industrial Park, providing for the granting an option for eventual sale of Lot 12 to LMI Aerospace, Inc. Sullentrup?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance vacating 21 feet on the north side of Missouri Avenue adjacent to 902 Missouri Avenue in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Sullentrup.
Introduced by Councilman Sullentrup.
All right, thank you. So this is a request of a partial vacation. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this structure. I think this is a long time coming, and we're happy to finally get it cleaned up. But this structure here, it's addressed at 902 Missouri Avenue. So as you can see in this aerial, this is the public right-of-way for Missouri Avenue, just south of the railroad tracks. It's obviously completely unimproved. The topography down there is pretty steep, and it is very unlikely that we would ever actually improve that with a real roadway. That is actually the original right-of-way that was there when it was Basora, back before the city of Washington even incorporated that into the city limits in the early 1900s. So this structure here at 902, and let me preface this with, these aerials are a little bit off, so we have our parcel lines that we get from the county, and then we overlay them with aerials. The plat that I have next, you'll see, is obviously more accurate from a survey. But this structure here was built, in the letter I put in the packet a number of years ago, it was built without a building permit. So there's really no record of us being able to go back and figure out exactly, other than looking at Google aerials. But it's been there quite a while. There was an original structure, and then there was an addition put on, and then it was sold, changed throughout multiple hands, as I understand, with cash transactions, which is why a survey was never completed on any of those. This has been on our radar for a long time. The past 3 owners, I think, have approached the city about how to get a building permit to rehab it and get occupancy. They never could because we can't issue any type of building permit, exterior or interior, when it's over a property line, nonetheless over a property line, but also on our public right-of-way. So there is a new owner for this property. Mr. Schmeltz is here, can answer your questions, but he has approached us about rehabbing this and bringing it into conformance and getting an occupancy for this. In order to do that, you have to vacate a portion of that right-of-way to get it completely on the property. I've highlighted here, I've kind of boldened it, this green line is a sewer line that does run just to the north of this property. And so we told the owner that before we could even entertain this with staff, before we can get a staff recommendation, we needed to know exactly what utilities were there, if it was under the building, because if it was, obviously that would pose some other issues. So a survey was submitted, and they spotted exactly where that sewer line is. So this dotted line, existing, that's ESS, existing sanitary sewer, is just to the north of the property. It does get close in this corner here, but it actually goes further down, so it's nowhere near the building. It's actually about 41 feet away from the building. And so you can see in this hashed area outlined in pink, they're requesting to vacate a portion of the right-of-way on both of these properties. It's the same owner for both of these. And you can see here in this area, it looks like it's actually on 3 parcels, our right-of-way in both of this. It's where you get in this older part of town, our aerials are a little bit off. This survey actually shows that it is not over that side property line. So there's no issue there. It's very close there, and it's actually not exactly parallel. As you can see, it gets a little bit closer. The good news, and this is zone commercial. In commercial, you can have a zero lot line on a single-story structure. This is a single story with a walkout, but it's not constitute a side yard setback issue. So it's really just the issue in the rear here. So there's 21 feet to be vacated to the north. We would actually vacate any interest in that property. The ownership of that would revert back to the new owner, and so their property line would actually be moved to the north. We discussed maybe possibly getting an easement for this, but since it is now still more than 20 feet away from the property line, we have plenty of room in our remaining right-of-way to access that sewer line if needed. So we did review this site plan. John looked at it. We had, obviously fire, water, everyone had a chance to comment on this, and we have no concern with approving this vacation to really finally clean up this issue that's been there for years and be able to get this building rehabbed and have legal occupancy.
Sal, did you say it was C2?
It is C1. I don't have a zoning map up here. It's C1 neighborhood commercial.
Okay.
Same as the hospital. That whole area is light,
C1.
light commercial.
Light commercial.
Yeah.
Sal, it looks like Missouri Avenue is north and south. The
So,
designation.
yeah, it's confusing. So originally, when this was platted, Missouri Avenue is platted as part of the original Basora. Madison Avenue was actually originally Jefferson. All of these lots were meant to be addressed off of Missouri Avenue, and this was actually an alley to the south. When this was never improved to the north, the only possibility for those homes to have access was through this alley. So on our GIS, we still call it an alley, but all these are addressed off of Missouri Avenue, and in reality, a delivery truck will turn down this alley. It's signed as Missouri Avenue, but that's only because the real Missouri Avenue is not improved.
Okay.
It's actually the same side on the other side of the highway. It's just kind of a confusing situation there where on both sides of Highway 47 here, those homes actually have their driveways off of their alley.
Interesting. Thank you.
Poses other issues, I'm sure, for the fire department, but until we have the wherewithal
So
to
for 2 blocks,
do it.
Missouri Avenue is vacated on the
It's-
west side of 47 also.
It is vacated on the west side. It is not vacated here.
Oh, okay.
As far as I understand, it's been requested before, but one time, years ago, I think we talked about in the site plan, it was requested to vacate this entire block. And we didn't want to do that is because that's how we access this sewer line.
Sure.
If we need to. So vacating a portion here, we don't have an issue with, one, because it cleans up this issue we've had, and two, it remains access not only to the sewer line, but this is how we get down to the railroad tracks, and our sewer line obviously is bored under the railroad tracks. So we wanted to keep, even though Madison Avenue isn't improved all the way, we want to keep that, and we want to keep this for future needs as well.
A
And the-
couple of years ago, they were gonna make that alley a right in and right out. Is that still in the works or not?
That was up to MoDOT at that time, but that has, if the only way that I think that would come about is if there's a major development on this intersection and MoDOT requires that with a traffic study.
910, they were trying to do something there, and then it was gonna be a right in, right out.
And that was the previous owner. So they had requested a rezoning, I believe, for that was denied because they didn't have, I think there was a couple issues with access as well as fire protection. In this case, they're not asking for a rezoning, they're just asking to be able to rehab this existing structure.
Did we put in a new water line in through there too?
Not through the north side. There's no water line to the north. There is water on the highway.
What about down Madison Avenue, north of Third Street?
I don't know if Kevin knows.
I couldn't answer that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought that was a 2-inch line going down that way.
I don't know without looking at the maps.
Yeah. I only turned on the sewer here.
We have not in the last 6 years.
We did verify that there's no water line to the north of the structure. So,
Thank you.
There was a discussion on the alley with our trash trucks and things like that a few years ago. That was an issue there. I thought maybe it was an even address thing, but nothing else that's
Yeah.
major.
That also, by keeping that right-of-way there, the area just to the west of Madison, in between there and the bridge, is somewhat flat. I mean, you can access that a little bit. So what it does is it just allows for, anything you could think of in the future, access to the bridge, access to the tracks, for whatever reason, I mean, it allows for that to continue on rather than just relinquishing all needs for it. So that's kind of why.
Yeah, we didn't want to
give
vacate
the
all of
entire
it.
right of way. And I did check that over. I did ask MoDOT that as well, just to run it by them, so.
Anything else?
Be nice to see that place have a residence instead of just being looks like it's being fixed up every day.
Well, and it'll have legal occupancy, which is good,
Right.
so.
Nice improvement. Okay.
An ordinance vacating 21 feet on the north side of Missouri Avenue, adjacent to 902 Missouri Avenue in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Solentrep?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, JDTF Place.
All right. So this is a request for a preliminary plat. It is actually, even though it's just a two-lot subdivision, it is a little bit more complicated than our typical plats. This is located just south of the intersection of 14th Street and Jefferson. 1401 Jefferson Street, there is an insurance office here, a State Farm office. And then there's this existing structure to the rear. It's been, I want to say, almost close to 6 months ago, the owner of this approached us about subdividing this property right down the middle so they could possibly sell off the back. We let them know that our subdivision code without variance requires, well, we actually just told them they couldn't do it. They had to get some right-of-way access. Our subdivision code has to have right-of-way access to either 14th Street or Jefferson. So their options were to flag lot it out to Jefferson, but you need at least 50 feet of right-of-way, and they didn't have the room here in order to do that, and I think that just they weren't interested in having an odd-shaped lot. The other option was to approach Ameren. So this is an Ameren substation just to the north, and they actually own, this is a very long piece that they own all the way down 14th Street, down the hill to Stafford. We said, well, you'd have to approach them about subdividing it off because they don't currently use this to the south, maybe buy all of it or a sliver of it to get right-of-way access. A couple months passed, the owner sent back a letter to us saying they approached Ameren and they were not successful. Ameren was not willing to subdivide or sell off, but they were willing to grant an easement. They asked, if they had any other ways forward. He told them the only other way really is to apply for a preliminary plat with a variance and some conditions listed on there. So again, this is also zoned C1, the light commercial. They're not changing any uses there, they're just in a subdivision, but there's no minimum lot sizes and there's no setback issues with that existing structure or where they want the subdivision line. But you can see here, right down the middle, this is where their proposed subdivision line is. And then here, they did submit paperwork showing an easement to be granted. Actually, it has been recorded from Ameren. It actually lines up perfectly with Lion Street, and it's 50 foot wide, and it accesses their property here. So essentially, they're asking for a preliminary plat approval of this subdivision creation with, in lieu of right-of-way frontage, to have that access platted. They did submit that. This did go to Planning and Zoning last week. Planning and Zoning did vote unanimously to improve this as the intent of the easement, the 50-foot right-of-way easement that allows them access does meet the intent of the code of making sure we don't want anything landlocked. That's the main thing. So tonight, it really is just a preliminary plat to be accepted into your minutes as shown here. They do have some utilities they have to show. So sewer is to the lot, but water is not. We require before a final plat is approved that they have to either get water to, or all utilities, water and sewer, to the property or submit an escrow. The reason we didn't have that here tonight is it is not clear if Ameren is only giving them ingress egress or allowing a water line to be put there as well. I'm going to be completely honest, I would assume Ameren would approve the placement of utilities as well as ingress egress, but the language does say ingress egress, so they have to clear that up and either get that in escrow, get the water line there before we can actually do a final plat. But this at least gets them a preliminary plat, gets the knowledge to them. I mean, it's not worth the property owner to pay for a sewer line to get to it if we're not going to approve this variance. I'll call it a variance, this change in plat here to allow an easement in lieu of right-of-way frontage. So,
John, isn't there a sewer line back there?
There's a sewer line here.
There's not water.
There's not.
Water is the
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
There's no, they have to figure out a way to go ahead and get water. That's why we,
We actually have to bring water.
The
right.
insurance office
Within 2
has
years.
its own cistern in it, doesn't it?
Well, I couldn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
Insurance office used to have a cistern in the basement.
It may, but it wouldn't, we don't allow that as proof of access to public utilities. And it's really for our protection if someone were to buy that and they say, hey, I'm in the middle of town, I don't have any utilities, why did you approve that? We can say, well, they have it in escrow, or it's supposed to be done in X amount of days, that kind of thing. There is water, obviously along Jefferson and 14th, and so if they can get that language amended to show it through here, it would probably be, in the grand scheme of things, a pretty cheap expansion to get water to this lot. They just need to get the language from Ameren to be able to prove that. But tonight's just a preliminary plat, accepting this into the minutes, and then if they decide to do an escrow, or they could come from Jefferson as well. This obviously has water, so they have some options where they'll submit those plans to John, our engineering office. If they accept that, then we'll come back with a final plat.
Does this give them a better chance if we approve this with Ameren to get their easement?
I don't know that it really
I mean,
makes a difference.
yeah, I don't know if it matters.
I don't think that necessarily makes a difference. It just lets them know that we'll approve the easement coming off of 14th Street.
I really do think
That's the
it's
main thing.
Okay.
I really do think it's a language thing. We told them you need egress easements. And
Yeah, from what we understand, it's an egress easement, which may or may not, we don't know, allow for utilities to be placed in it. Egress is just that, going in, coming back. It does not necessarily allow you to put utilities underground.
Okay.
So that's what we got to make sure that they have.
Okay.
Creating this lot goes back all the way to the days when Matt Tobin had the insurance agency there. This has been a long time.
But there's nothing detrimental to the city here. It's a possibility of an additional commercial property
lot.
if someone
Correct.
builds
We
there.
just
and-
want to make sure we're making sure it meets the
Yeah.
intent of the code at least with having access, and that we're not creating an unbuildable lot.
What is that structure that's there now?
Yeah, dilapidated garage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't have an occupancy permit when I checked, so I don't know if it's
No,
storage or.
It's nothing.
It just went with the house
Old barn.
years ago.
I've never seen it.
That was Ron
Not see it
Understall's
from the road.
parents, right?
Larry.
You know what it was? That was Ron's
Larry
That
house.
was Ron Understall's parents' house.
What's that?
The brick.
Throw it up with weeds.
What he said.
He was a builder.
Time I drive by,
So you need a motion to accept into the minutes?
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Pettit, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
Mayor's report.
A couple of items. Our next, we'll be having a special council meeting on August 30th at 6 p.m., and that will be to review the budget. By that time, we will have the official numbers of what our tax rate will be.
Correct.
And
That'll
we
be
will
the
be
hearing for the
approving,
tax rate.
and so that is the special hearing for the tax rate, the public hearing for that. There will be one more meeting in September, I guess, when we do, at a regular meeting, when we approve the budget.
Well, we'll have a budget hearing actual in September.
Right.
And the ordinance to approve the budget.
Yes. The other item is because Labor Day is on September 6th, on a Monday, so our next council meeting, after the one on the 30th, will be on a Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. So mark your calendar for that. And lastly, we have quite a few individuals signed up for Friday night's event, where we have 144. So we've got families coming, and so the pool will be open, and I think a lot of people are excited about being there. on,
Sharpen up on your
Friday
triple
evening.
Lindy's.
That's right.
We want to see them.
So,
Scratching your vinyl?
I don't even know.
No, not that much.
Son, don't ask any questions.
all right. So I think it'll be a nice turnout.
Vito.
So, thank you all.
City Administrator's report.
No report. I just have one real estate item for you in executive session.
Council comments.
Threw that away.
Got a question on these Lime scooters. I'm getting calls that people have seen them on the bridge driving. Do we have access on the bridge for Lime scooters?
They do?
They do?
Yeah, on the pedestrian.
On the pedestrian walkway?
The map allows it to that, it just doesn't allow it south of 100. Yes.
South of.
Right, south of 100.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
City Attorney's Report. Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Sullentrup,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Holtmeyer, Patke,
Yes.
Scornia,
Yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Heidrich.
We are adjourned, and